The first chord in this progression is a fairly unusual chord to start a new section on. Hey everyone, my name is Christoph Jakob, I'm a music composer for video games. And welcome to a brand new series on this channel called Underrated and Overlooked. As you know, this channel is not only about Splatoon, yes, I actually do some other stuff on here as well, but it's also all about sharing the music we love with each other. In this new series, I'd like to share some of my personal favorite tunes from games that you may not even know of, or tunes from fairly known original soundtracks that get a little overshadowed by some of the other tunes. And I'd like to talk about what I think makes them so great. Today, let's check out one of the, in my opinion, greatest 16-bit tunes of all time. I'm talking about Round 5-1 from Ristar, a Sega Genesis game about a humanoid shooting star from 1995. Round 5-1, also known as Ring Rink, is an ice-themed stage. Is this going to sound like your typical ice-themed tune though? Let's take a listen. Quite peaceful, isn't it? But also fairly funky. Listen to the bass. If you're not used to FM 16-bit music in general, it might sound a little harsh to you at first maybe. But that's exactly what I personally love so much about it. This kind of chiptune music just tends to sound very to the point, pronounced and in your face. Round 5-1 starts on an F major chord. There is a very high-pitched square lead-like instrument that is staying on the 5th of the chord. We can also hear an instrument that sounds like the sound effect you hear when collecting rings in Sonic games. This instrument is playing a little motif that is also outlining an F major chord. But it also includes the 6. For context, I'm going to add the root note F, but it sounds something like this. The 6 is a pretty colorful note. It's by no means as emotional or expressive sounding as something like the major 7, the 9 or the 11 though in my opinion. But it does add some flavor to the chord. And it actually does remind me of Christmas music to a degree. Furthermore, there's a fairly subtle instrument that is constantly jumping between the 3 and the 4. After a couple of seconds, a bass kicks in as well. I absolutely love what's going on in the bass. I actually didn't even notice before I took a closer listen, but I always thought that the bass is simply playing the root, the 5th and the octave. What it's actually doing though is overshooting the octave and landing on the 9th. The 9 can often sound a little melancholic, maybe even depressing in a way, especially if you use it in a minor key. In a major key, however, it loses its melancholy and can actually sound rather playful and quirky. The main melody, this warm instrument that sounds a little bit like a sine wave, is jumping back and forth between the major 7 and the 9. Two very colorful notes. And later on, it simply moves down the F major scale. A simple and straightforward move that sounds awesome in this context though. I find it fascinating that there are so many instruments that all keep focusing on different notes, which all outline an F major chord without clashing with one another at all. Every single note of the F major scale appears here, which is something you don't typically hear in music at all. In addition to all of this, a fairly funky drum groove is making sure that we're never losing interest. Oh, and in case you're curious about the chords, we're staying on an F major chord, only moving to C major every now and then at the very end of a phrase. Sounds like this. is rhythmically really interesting. Listen again. In my opinion, part of what makes 5-1 or Ring Rink such an interesting tune is its simplicity. While we do get a new chord progression in this new section, it's a not at all surprising one. You hear a lot of music nerds refer to this as a 2-5-1 progression. Probably one of the, if not the most common harmonic movement in all of music. The progression goes like this. A couple of unusual rhythmic things happen in this section though. The bass, which had just been funky and jumping around like me whenever I read some super nice comments about my videos.
That is probably one of the most horrible and ridiculous videos I've ever seen. I've watched it 7 times just to make sure how horrible it really is.
Is now staying on the root note of every chord and playing consistent quarter notes. Well, that's honestly the most simple thing you can do rhythmically, but it does add quite a nice contrast to the previous section. Meanwhile, the instrument that had been jumping between the 3 and 4 in the previous section is now so rhythmically weird, while also simply playing the exact same note over and over again. Let me try and clap along though, because it's rhythmically really interesting. Weird rhythmic elements like that, and the drums of course, which are still pretty much playing the same thing, all make sure that this tune never really loses its funky vibes. And this upcoming section is awesome. The melody is just so good, and listen to that freaking bass. The climax section of Ring Rink is probably one of the most catchy sections I've ever heard in a song in my life. Both the choice of chords and the melody, or melodies, are fairly simplistic, but I think that's exactly what makes it so interesting to listen to. But not everything is completely predictable. That is what usually keeps music interesting. I think one of the main reasons why the climax section is so catchy to begin with is the bass. The bass also dictates that the first chord in this progression is a fairly unusual chord to start a new section on. The previous section ended on F major. And what's kind of funny is that this new section also starts on an F major chord. But the bass is playing the note A, which turns this entire chord into an F over A chord. You could also say F with an A in the bass. The entire progression goes like this.
Something like that.
I absolutely adore just how triumphant this part is. But there's also a hint of melancholy and bittersweetness in it. And if you've been watching my videos for a while now, you probably know just how much I love bittersweet music. So music that is technically happy, but for some reason it makes you feel a little nostalgic and sad. That's probably one of the reasons why I love this tune so much. What I also find fascinating is that there are technically 2 main melodies playing at the same time. And those 2 melodies are doing completely different things without it ever sounding off. I'm talking about this warm sine wave-like instrument and this trumpet-like synth. Let's listen to this part again, because I honestly think this part is simply too good to only be heard one single time.
I'm sorry. I was practicing how to be cool.
And this upcoming section is awesome. The melody is just so good, and listen to that freaking bass. This tune has no reason to go as hard as it does. But it's just so good. Thanks for watching. Like this video and subscribe to this channel if you have not already. Channel members are a thing now as well, so if you want to have access to custom emojis, custom badges, and early access to videos, consider leaving a membership. Alternatively, if you want to support me, you can check out some of my music as well. I've actually written an entire fan-made 16-bit soundtrack before. I'm gonna link that in the end card. Anyway, thank you so much and I'll see you all next time.